Over roast chicken, my dad said. You should be thankful we even let you in this house. My mom just nodded. I took one last bite, stood up and said, Duly noted. By Tuesday, I froze the shared account due to an ownership change. When they found out about it the next day, without thinking twice, This was during a period when my parents' arrogance knew no bounds. It had been slowly building over the past year. But lately, it felt like every conversation with them was a subtle reminder that they believed they were owed something. Owed status, owed comfort, owed recognition. The irony was they were living a life paid for almost entirely by me. But you wouldn't know it from the way they talked. What triggered this shift was honestly baffling. For the first time in years, I'd asked them for help. Not even financial, just small things for the business I'd built. I was scaling back, cutting costs, tightening operations. Nothing dramatic, just being smart. I asked them to help out with a few tasks, things they could do from home or on their drive into town. It was an attempt to involve them, to maybe give them some purpose. What I got in return? Condescension. They started talking down to me like I was some struggling nephew they let crash on the couch. Mind you, this was after a decade of covering their mortgage, utilities, groceries, surprise expenses, and more. I even paid for their anniversary trip to Santa Barbara last year, and they spent most of it arguing in hotel lobbies because the complimentary breakfast didn't include eggs made to order. Still, I kept telling myself, they're just old. They're just stressed. But I was running out of excuses for people who had made freeloading look like an art form. That Sunday, I came over for dinner, something I hadn't done in a while, and for good reason. The house still smelled like old lemons cleaner and cooked onions. Mom was setting the table. Dad was pouring wine. And the mood felt staged like a sitcom family waiting for the audience to laugh. Dinner was roast chicken dry. The kind of dry where even the gravy couldn't save it. But I was polite. I chewed, nodded, asked about their week. Then, as casually as I could, I mentioned needing someone to drop off a package for a client on Tuesday. Simple favor. Mom didn't answer. She just looked at Dad. And he, without missing a beat, put down his fork and said, You should be thankful we even let you in this house. I didn't even react right away. Just looked at both of them, wondering if I heard it right. Mom nodded like they had practiced it, like it wasn't a joke. That's when it hit me. They didn't see me as their son anymore. I was a walking bank account. And now that they felt like they helped me by doing what exactly? Answering a few emails, dropping off one package last month. They thought they'd earned the right to lecture me. I took one last bite of that chicken, set my fork down, duly noted, and I left. No drama, no yelling, just done. By Tuesday morning, I logged into the shared account, the one I'd been dumping money into for years, and froze it. Just like that, marked it for ownership change and notified the bank. Everything stopped. Mortgage auto payments, utilities, streaming services, grocery deliveries, Mom's car lease payment, even the $13.99 they used every month for premium crossword puzzles on her iPad. All gone. I didn't say a word to them. I let the silence speak for itself. Wednesday morning, they noticed. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. 20 missed calls. Dad left a voicemail calling me ungrateful, manipulative, and financially abusive. Said if I didn't reinstate the account by the end of the day, they'd be taking legal action. Legal action from the same people who had no money to buy toilet paper last month without asking me to spot them till Friday. It would have been hilarious if it weren't so pitiful. Later that afternoon, I got an email from Mom. Subject line, Notice of Intent. Inside was a PDF she clearly found online, claiming I owed them $50,000 for emotional damages, betrayal of familial duty, and what she called mental destabilization caused by financial cruelty. She ended the letter with a note about considering a lawyer. This from two people who didn't even know how to set up online banking until I walked them through it twice. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. They had crossed the line, and I wasn't going to pretend like it didn't happen. I wasn't angry. I was clear. There's a difference. What they didn't realize yet was how much of their life depended on my silent support. But they were about to find out, and I was going to let them bit by bit. By Thursday morning, the unraveling had begun. This was the part they never thought would happen. The part where their lives stitched together with auto payments and silent coverage started to fray without warning. All I had done was press pause. I didn't touch their passwords or accounts. I simply let gravity take over. Everything they never thought about was suddenly on fire. The first sign was the internet. Dad called me at 7:12 a.m. sharp, which already told me something was broken. I didn't answer. He followed it with a text. "Internet's not working. What's going on?" Then another less polite version in all caps. I let it sit there on my lock screen. By mid-morning, Mom tried her angle. She left a voicemail that started sweet and ended in what I guess was supposed to be a warning. Said this had gone too far, that they were devastated and didn't understand why I was punishing them. It was always like that. Any change they didn't like was labeled punishment. They didn't grasp the idea of consequences. Just that comfort was their birthright. I checked the systems I used to keep their life afloat. Everything was blinking red. Streaming accounts, internet, cell plans, utilities, grocery deliveries. All billing attempts declined. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic, just a quiet collapse of convenience. The health insurance situation hit them by noon. Dad went to refill a prescription and was told the card on file had expired. It hadn't. It had just stopped being my problem. I had removed my card from the family plan 3 weeks ago and sent him an email telling him to update his information. He hadn't. By afternoon, the tone shifted. Dad texted me, "This is a serious matter. You're putting our well-being at risk." That was rich coming from a man who once bought a smartwatch with a payment plan when he couldn't afford gas. I didn't respond. Then came the email. Not from them, but from my brother. Subject line, "Fix this now." He hadn't spoken to me directly in months. Lived with his girlfriend in a rental she paid for. Spent most of his time gaming and pretending he was building a personal brand. I'd covered one of their rent payments last year when she was traveling, and he never even thanked me. His email was 3 lines. "What you're doing is toxic. They're your parents. We all go through hard times. Be better." No context. No interest in what actually led to this. Just another voice demanding I resume the free ride. That night, Dad sent me a photo. It was their living room, dark, except for the glow of a single candle on the table. Hope this was worth it. It would have been laughable if it wasn't so pathetic. They'd lived so long on my dime that the idea of logging into an account and paying a bill was now beneath them. Somehow, I had become the ungrateful one. But this wasn't vengeance. This was reality correcting itself. I wasn't cutting them off to be cruel. I was letting them stand on their own feet for the first time in years. And yeah, it was gonna hurt because they never learned to balance, only to lean. They thought this was the end of something. They had no idea it was just the beginning. By Monday, they were done pretending to be confused. I got the email mid-morning. It was from my mom, but the tone had shifted entirely. No more worried parent language. This was formal, like someone trying to play lawyer through Google Docs. Attached was a PDF titled "Formal Demand Financial Compensation." The letter claimed I had caused them emotional suffering, disrupted their lives, and inflicted what she called intentional hardship through abrupt financial severance. The amount they were seeking, $50,000, for moral damages. I stared at the screen, waiting for the punchline, but that was it. No sarcasm, no irony. Just a very official-looking signature block at the bottom, as if she was expecting me to forward it to my non-existent legal team. They even mentioned a potential lawsuit, said they were considering involving a family attorney. One they apparently hadn't hired yet because they couldn't afford to. That part almost made me laugh. They were demanding money from me using a borrowed laptop and a free document template. But here's where it got even better. The letter said they would accept a one-time settlement of $40,000 if paid within 10 business days. As if they were doing me a favor. It would have been insulting if it weren't so desperate. I didn't reply, but I did something else. Remember the car lease Mom had? The one under my name because she had bad credit. I let the dealership know I would no longer be responsible for any future payments. Within 48 hours, the car was flagged for voluntary repossession. She'd get the notice in a week or so, but by then it wouldn't matter. She hadn't made a payment on her own in years. Next, I disconnected the utilities I had set up years ago in their name, but linked to my account. They'd have to open new ones from scratch. With a credit score I knew was probably hovering somewhere between questionable and catastrophic. As for the subscription services they depended on, cell phones, streaming, grocery memberships, even their Amazon Prime, I closed the accounts completely. Not paused, not frozen, closed, and I sent one message. Not to them, but to my brother. Don't contact me again unless it's for something you're paying for yourself. He replied almost immediately. Wow. So this is who you are now. Got it. Then he blocked me. I know because I tried to reply and the message bounced. It was honestly a relief. That night I slept better than I had in months, maybe even years, because for the first time the silence wasn't a punishment. It was peace. I wasn't worried about who needed what or what was about to bounce or how I was going to fix a mess I didn't make. They wanted to see what life without me looked like. So I gave it to them piece by piece, system by system, dollar by dollar. And the truth was, this wasn't revenge. This was recovery. By Wednesday, the circus gained a new clown. An email arrived from a man named Anthony Rossi. The subject line read, "Notice of representation. Andrews versus Andrews." No joke. They had hired or more likely convinced a lawyer to send me a letter. He claimed to represent my parents in a pending civil matter regarding financial interference and elder mistreatment. The email was wordy, full of half-W legal phrases that sounded like someone had asked ChatGPT to write a cease and desist. He said, "My parents were experiencing psychological distress due to the termination of financial obligations previously assumed without formal release." It was the kind of language that tried really hard to sound like a threat, but came off like a bad college essay. But I still looked the guy up just in case. Turns out Anthony Rossi was real. He had an office above a vape shop and specialized in estate planning and document notarization. His website offered a free downloadable living will template and proudly listed him as licensed since 2004, reinstated 2017. That told me all I needed. Still, I responded. Not for him, for the record. Dear Mr. Razy, all financial support provided to William and Marjorie Andrews was voluntary and undocumented. Any claims of financial obligation are unsupported by contract or legal agreement. Should your clients wish to escalate, I will present all financial records, payment histories, and evidence of dependency. Please proceed if desired. Best, Nathan Andrews. He never replied. What came next was silence. Not peace, just silence. No texts, no missed calls, no emails. I figured maybe they realized this wasn't going to end in a payout. Maybe they were regrouping, but I knew my family too well to think they were done. Saturday night around 10:30 p.m., a text popped up from a number I didn't recognize. "Hey man, what's the Wi-Fi password again?" Took me a second. Then I realized it was my brother. Turns out he and his girlfriend had temporarily moved back into our parents' house. Their place got too expensive and she was sick of paying while he played video games all day. She dumped him 2 weeks ago, apparently. I found out later from a mutual friend. So there he was back under the same roof he used to make fun of trying to connect to Wi-Fi I used to pay for. I didn't reply, but I remembered I still had access to the router system. Years ago, I'd set it up myself and Dad never changed the admin credentials. So I logged in. I changed the Wi-Fi network name to not_your_network and the password to Payable Billables 2025. Then I enabled Mac filtering and locked them all out. 5 minutes later, I got another text. "Bro, seriously, grow up. This is childish." I didn't answer. It was the same guy who once told me to chill out when I covered his rent with my emergency fund. But Sunday brought something I didn't expect. A call from a man named Ray. Said he was a regional supervisor for a logistics company outside of town. Needed someone for a warehouse admin role. Scheduling, routing, simple inventory checks. Said the role wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The kind of job, in his words, for someone older who just needs to get back on the grid. At first, I thought maybe it was for me. But then I realized this was the opportunity. I gave him my dad's name and number. Told him he had experience in transport and warehouse work. Said he was dependable, not out of kindness, out of strategy. If Dad took it, he'd at least have a reason to wake up before noon. Ray seemed happy with the referral. Said he'd give him a call Monday. I didn't tell my dad I set it up. I didn't tell anyone. It wasn't about thanks or redemption. It was just me cleaning up the last mess I was willing to deal with. After that, I blocked my brother's number, deleted the shared family calendar, canceled the extra iCloud storage plan I was paying for, and that was it. They wanted independence. I gave it to them. Stripped down, inconvenient, unpaid for independence. Let them figure it out. I had already done more than enough. By Monday afternoon, the text started sounding different. Shorter, less angry, more confused. It had been a week since I pulled the plug on everything. I hadn't spoken a word to any of them since the lawyer email. I figured they'd ride the chaos for a few days and then start asking around for help. But apparently, the reality of life without someone silently paying the bills was hitting a lot harder than expected. The first signal came from a message my mom sent to an old mutual contact of ours. She didn't know I still talked to her. The message just said, "Do you know if Nathan changed the card on our phones? Mine won't work anymore and the store says it's unpaid." That was true. The family plan had been on my account. 3 lines. Mine, Mom's, Dad's, and later my brother's. I shut it down last Thursday, gave them a 5-day grace period, and then canceled the whole thing. They were now completely disconnected unless they figured out how to get new phones and pay deposits for new service. Next came an email from Dad sent from his work email, which surprised me. Subject, call me. I didn't open it. Just seeing that subject line was enough. This from the guy who hadn't worked in 7 years, whose last job ended when he stopped showing up because he said the boss lacked vision. I checked in with the logistics guy I referred him to. He said he had reached out and Dad had agreed to come in for a trial shift that week. He asked me if he should follow up. I told him yes. I didn't care whether my dad knew I had anything to do with it or not. If he took the job and showed up, that was all that mattered. That night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. It was my mom calling from a friend's phone. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. But she did say they were considering selling the house. Said things had become unstable and that they couldn't live like this much longer. She also said something that stuck with me. We thought family was unconditional. That's when I realized something that made me feel surprisingly calm. They had never actually been abandoned. They just didn't know what boundaries looked like. For years, I had been paying to keep them comfortable, and they had mistaken that for love. Now that the money was gone, they were confusing absence with cruelty. They still didn't understand. They thought this was about punishment. But really, this was the first honest version of our relationship in years. They couldn't manipulate it, couldn't buy time, couldn't guilt their way out, and they were finally seeing it in full daylight. It was only a matter of time now before things either collapsed entirely or they figured out how to function. Either way, it wasn't my problem anymore. A week after the voicemail about selling the house, the silence settled in for real. No more texts, no more calls from strange numbers, no more accidental. Forgot to block you. Emails from my brother. It all just stopped. I figured they finally got the hint or ran out of devices to message me from. Then out of nowhere, Ray emailed me. He said Dad had shown up to the job early, wearing a wrinkled button-down and carrying a plastic folder filled with resumes that looked like they were made on a public library computer. Ray said he didn't talk much, but he got through the trial shift without complaint. He'd even asked about the weekly pay schedule. Said he was hoping to catch up on a few things. That was all I needed to know. He had taken the job. I didn't reply to Ray. I didn't need to. That chapter was closed. It wasn't my responsibility to monitor whether Dad made it to week 2. I'd offered one last push, and he'd either follow through or fall back into old patterns. Either way, I was out of it. As for my brother, I heard from someone mutual that he was now sleeping in his childhood bedroom, still playing games, still ranting online about fake people and family betrayal. His girlfriend had blocked him on everything. Apparently, he started telling people he was cut off by a greedy sibling who made millions and forgot who helped him. Nobody's buying it, not even the ones who used to believe everything he said. Mom, I'm not sure. She'd probably switched to asking neighbors for rides and figured out how to pay 1 or 2 bills from whatever part-time cleaning work she could find. Or maybe she finally dipped into that emergency savings she always said she didn't have. I haven't spoken to any of them since. Not even once. I keep getting these small reminders. An old PayPal transaction popping up. A shared family calendar notification I forgot to delete. The occasional suggestion to call Dad on Father's Day from some app that still thinks we're close. But I ignore them. The truth is, I don't hate them. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. There's this strange peace in knowing that the only thing I needed to do to reclaim my life was nothing. Just stop. Let go. They thought I needed them to be whole. What they didn't realize was I was whole the second I stopped trying to fix people who didn't want to be fixed. I haven't missed them. Not for a second. And I've never slept better. It had been about 3 months since I cut contact. I didn't keep a countdown or mark a calendar. It just passed quietly the way real healing does. Slow, without applause. The kind of peace that doesn't announce itself. It just becomes your new normal. Most days I didn't think about them. Not out of spite, just because there was finally room in my mind for other things. I was sleeping better, working smarter, spending money on things that mattered and didn't disappear into someone else's mess. Then Shannon, a mutual acquaintance who still lived near my parents, messaged me out of the blue. Your dad's still working. Actually seems okay. Looks like he's taking it seriously. That made me pause. I'd assumed he would last a week, maybe 2. But apparently not only had he stuck with it, he'd been moved to a more organized role. Something about logistics tracking. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, reliable. Then came the second update. My mom had started selling things, kitchenware, old clothes, some handmade stuff on Etsy. Shannon even saw her hosting a garage sale on a Saturday. A card table set up with a box labeled $1 items and jars of homemade jam. She said my mom looked tired but focused, less bitter. Still, I didn't reach out. Then a thick envelope arrived. No return address, just my name printed neatly across the front. Inside were 4 letters, all handwritten, all folded carefully. The first was from Dad. Bare bones. No dramatic declarations, no real apology, just a short note that said, I didn't know what I was leaning on until it wasn't there anymore. Thank you for giving me space. You were right. I'm working again. It's strange, but good. The second was from Mom. Longer, emotional, full of underlined words. She said she didn't understand at first, but now she did. Said the silence felt cruel in the beginning, but eventually it became something else. Clarity, maybe. She said she still wasn't sure how to fix things or if she even should, but she was trying to live in a way that doesn't rely on your kindness without respecting it. The third letter came from my brother. Honestly, I expected his to be full of blame or sarcasm, but it wasn't. It was messy, scribbled in places, crossed out and rewritten like he was figuring it out while writing. I thought you cut me off because you hated me. I get now it was because I didn't give you a reason not to. That messed me up more than I expected. I got a part-time job at a car wash. It sucks. I sweat like hell, but I get paid Friday and no one had to spot me. That feels weird. Good weird. He didn't ask for anything. That was the biggest surprise. The last letter was from Ree, the warehouse manager. He said my dad told him everything, that I was the one who got him the job. Ree thanked me for giving someone like him a chance. Said not many people would. He said my dad had never once been late and had become someone others asked questions to. That letter hit harder than the rest. I didn't reply to any of them. I didn't need to. Sometimes you don't send letters back. Sometimes you just keep them because in their silence after the storm, something had shifted. Not all at once, not perfectly, but it was movement and that was enough for me.